Yeah. All right. Testing, testing. All right, that should have me. So I should be able to hear myself now. Let me double check that. Double check I can hear myself now. So today's topic, can you spot manipulation? So I'm going to be diving into propaganda. Okay, looks good. So I find this interesting because it's one of the reasons why I stopped watching, TV and really just taking stuff for what it was. Um, because I know how people like to. When I say people, it's usually a group of people. It's rarely ever is it just one person. But I find it when people um, or groups of people tend to want to push a narrative, and propaganda is just for that. I just released a video. Um, Actually, a couple minutes ago. I should have released it at the beginning of the day, but the word of the day is propaganda. And if I could look up the definition real quick. Propaganda. Information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. It can be very powerful. Um, it can be very powerful to influence the masses. And when I say the masses, I mean the general population. Why is that? Well, that's relevant because of the way things work today. Today more than ever, propaganda is more impactful in certain situations because you can reach a bigger audience with social media and the internet. I'm a strong believer that we have information overload nowadays. We know too much about everything. Like I can know about stuff going on in Africa and China and vice versa. Stuff I don't necessarily need to know because it's not in my own backyard. But thanks to the media and news, I'm aware of it. I'm aware of someone that gets killed in New York and New Jersey as if it was down the street. So I'm more aware of things that go on around me. And one of the things I find is certain news outlets like to push their agendas, like to push their narratives, and I find it troublesome because how can we ever really tackle the problem if we never really know what the problem is? Someone's always pushing that the problem's one thing when really it could be completely different, but because they push that narrative that it is one thing, people only focus on the one thing and the other thing goes completely unchecked. Why is this relevant? Because if you take a look at the black community, it's a very good example of how black men have been at the scrutiny, have been under constant scrutiny since I've been alive for sure. At least the past two, going on 3 decades. Um, deadbeat fathers, physically aggressive, uh, lazy, the stereotypical, prejudices that black men like myself have had to run into or are aware of. Being pulled over by the police. I mean, let's just, if I got to say it, I mean, I live, I shout out to, my North Carolina folks. I live in Charlotte, and I will say this: the only speeding tickets I've gotten are in Georgia, and I don't. Let's just say I don't like driving through Georgia. There's certain towns in Georgia you just drive right through them. You don't stop for gas. But in Charlotte, I've been pulled over numerous times, but I've never gotten a ticket. One reason because I mean I'm a well-to-do black guy driving a fairly nice, decent car on a fairly nice side of town. And to be honest, you know, I'm more than willing to get my lawyers on the situation, and I believe they also believe that. But um, some officers they do try to poke and pry for information that isn't relevant to the situation, which is why, although in the past 5 years I've probably been pulled over 4 times, I've only ever gotten warnings for things that I didn't really do. Like one cop, he literally pulled me over because this is his words. I looked like I was going kind of fast. So I'm not stupid, but at the same time, there are reasons for that, which I am aware of. Because I am black. And I'm not ignorant to prejudice. I'm not ignorant to racism. I'm not ignorant to any of that. But when it comes to propaganda in this situation, I'm going to point through a few stories that each story kind of tells a little bit about it because it also dives into the part where I say when you recognize a problem and then you're supposed to fix it. That's there's certain processes you got to go through. But the thing is, when you can't really solve or when you can't really recognize the problem and then you start to try and go fix stuff, it's not going to turn out right. You're going to have skewed results, which, today, 2 million more black women, but you got 1 million more married black men. That's a skewed result. Now, they haven't been focusing on the black men, even though even though the narrative has been pushed that black men are this and that and underperforming, et cetera, et cetera. Yet black men have still been able to outperform black women despite all the support black women have received. Now, in this situation, there's going to be an article showing how the victimhood of black women goes in society. And then also, I'm going to talk about bad science because propaganda isn't just news articles. Today and throughout history as well, I'm aware of certain when they try to say black people were ignorant and they did research studies to try to support their arguments, you know, of course they were biased, so they made sure that whatever, like they were trying to compare like an educated white man to a black man that was a slave that never got educated and be like, oh, see, the white man's obviously smarter. Of course he's smart. He went to freaking college. So there are results like that that can obviously be skewed, and that's why it's called considered bad science. And also, there's also results where even though it's technically not bad science, like they're not obviously biased, they will still do things where they might do tests in certain cities and they'll only take the results from the one city that backs their narrative. So of course one city is not an entire nation, so it's going to be a relatively small population size. But you can still get some kind of statistically significant results, especially when you do multiple cities. So the first article is going to be pushing the narrative. So this is a good example of a news article where propaganda is used to push the narrative that black women are victims. Which, if you're aware of it, there's two kind of narratives that are actually being pushed, which contradict one another. There's the narrative that black women are victims, they're underperforming, they need all this help, and then there's the other narrative where black women are outperforming black men, and black men are underperforming and yada yada. And the funny thing is they both contradict one another because on one hand you have you have it where the black woman's trying to play the victim, or that's the narrative being pushed, and that's why, oh, that's, trauma and stress, et cetera. That's why they're overweight. That's why they're underperforming. That's why they're, the welfare queens or whatever. And then on the other hand, you have it where, oh yeah, black women are doing so well, so let's keep it up. We're out here competing against our men and all the other men and women. They contradict each other. So in this narrative, this is the one coming from the victim side, and there is somewhat of a example for the opposite, but not exactly. But I'm just gonna show you this side right here. So the narrative, of course, is black women are victims. Oh my goodness, how can you ever make them a victim? So this is an article courtesy of the Guardian, 2021. Let's see what the it's 1 month old, so it's fairly recent. This is something that's fairly consistent. You ask black women are like, oh, we're unprotected. We don't have, black women should protect black women. That kind of narrative. We're all. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you're already aware of that narrative. And of course, they're going to push out these statistics and results showing, oh, black women get murdered and black women getting killed and black women doing this and doing that and do that. And this story that I'm actually about to share with you is actually a good example as to why, even if this is true, which it is, black women do get killed more than other groups of women, certain groups of women, because I believe Native American women actually have it worse. But they do get, higher death rates compared to like white women, etc. But what's not being told is also how they are also the physical aggressors. In some of these instances where, you might have a woman charging a dude with a knife, and I mean, let's just be real, that's not going to end well for her, especially if the dude has a weapon of his own. I mean, if I'm just being honest. But in the story I'm about to share, actually, it's just gonna show this narrative, and it's just and this was actually covered by Dr. T. Hasan Johnson. So shout out to him. I shouted him out, and this is the story where you had a mother, and this is I know now we know she's a mother, but original article was black woman killed by black man up north. That was like the original title. Like that's all you saw. Like woman addressing man who groped her, or now I'm looking at this other article where they went a step further, where they mentioned she's a mother. So now of course, oh my God, like this is terrible. Like a New York mother killed after addressing a man who groped her. Like that's crazy. And of course, there was another article where they phrased it like black woman shot and killed by a black man that groped her on the street. It was very specific, especially in that Dr. T.S.on Johnson video, which I wasn't able to link prior to this, but if I find it, I'm gonna put it in the description. Where he looked at that article in general, and he also made the references to how they frame um, the title, which they frame the title as if, oh, this is another, victim. She's a victim. Oh my God, like who, like she's a mom. Of course they now this in this case they chose a proper picture. This will get a lot of sympathy from people. Oh my God, like, she really got shot and killed, and she's a mom. That's terrible. 29 years old. And then and what they don't expressed in the title is it wasn't just her that got shot. It was her and her man. And as you realize, as I unravel this situation, you'll realize how it goes from this to something completely different. So first things first, of course, the narrative being, oh, black women are victims, black women are victims and all this hate, and black men kill all these black women and stuff because black men are just rampant. No, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, he talks about proxy violence and how black women weaponize their own men to kill each other and one another. Um, I believe I did. If I didn't link it in the description, I'll probably link that video as well, where he specifically talks about proxy violence. And in this situation, this is actually a case. of that very same proxy violence because I don't believe at the time, more facts came out now that the person, because mind you, this happened. This article was released in February the 2nd, but now the guy who actually shot her has been arrested, and more details have come out, including a video. Um, Now the video is not of the entire confrontation, but it is of part of the confrontation, or at least like leading up to the confrontation. So if you read these articles, Shadena Smith and her fiance returned to the street to confront her alleged groper afterward, and she ended up dead. So mind you, she returned to the street. So apparently the original story was she was returning from a bodega or whatever, getting groceries, and the guy on the street groped on her. And she returned home, told her fiance, and then they went to confront the guy on the street. That's what the story's supposed to be. A young Harlem mother was shot and killed after she and her fiance confronted a man who had groped her on the street. So once again, they're doubling down on that. Shadena was 26. Afternoon, January 16. When a man grabbed her, she returned to her apartment where she told her fiance what happened. Then the couple went outside to address the man. So the confrontation escalated into gunfire, and a couple was shot inside the first floor hallway of the apartment. Now this is where my senses kind of perk up because the way they explain in an article, and like I said, I'm going to dissect this a little bit. Um, Not a little bit, but I'm just going to just follow me here. So the way they explain it in the article is, um, she's this mother, and some random guy on the street groped her, grabbed her some type of way, and she went and got her man, and he came back and confronted the guy. But they got shot in the first floor hallway of the apartment building that they live in. That's that. So what? Did the guy follow them? Follow her home? Because it was supposed to be a guy on the street. And this is where, like, if you really read some of these articles, sometimes they contradict themselves. And of course, they got some little testimonies and people talking about, oh, this is sad, this is a sad situation. Then you have another article. So this is Yahoo or whatever. Then Yahoo is getting it from another source or whatever. Then you have the source, or same picture. You know, that's a decent picture. And then they got another little, she weaving and whatnot, but it's whatever. 29-year-old, yada yada yada, same thing. And a hell of bullets inside of the first floor hallway of their apartment building. So once again, they say she died in a hell of bullets inside the first floor of the hallway of their apartment building. So now it's like, okay, was it really some guy on the street? Since they're technically in their apartment building, or was it some guy in the lobby or whatever of their apartment building, meaning the guy most likely lives there or knows somebody that lives there. You see, so now the story's starting to get a little, it's kind of getting weird. Now we're going to move on to some of the articles where it's obvious they're going to, Madame Noir, notorious for, what it is. Of course, violence against black women. Oh no, black women, we have to save each other, and we're on our own and stuff. So of course they're going to push the same narrative. Now it promotes to street harasser. Another black woman has lost her life at the hands of a street harasser, according to New York Daily News. Let's see if we can go to this article, because this might be the original article. Really talk about it. Harlem mom Philly shot after confronting man who groped her on street. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. The violence. And mind you, follow me. Now this is where the picture's like, okay, this wasn't that original picture. She definitely weaving. She got the tattoo and she's every bit of a. You know what? Let me just continue on. I don't even want. Yeah, draw your own conclusion. Now this is the one linked from Madame Noir. So from this one, we understand. Wait a second. She's got so the 26-year-old fiance. So her fiance is younger than her. Do what you got to do, I guess. Hope the baby's his. Not sure about that. Doesn't say anything about that. It just says she's a single mom, and the child was like 1 going on 2. So I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if he was the father or not of the child. But it is what it is. So she's with a younger guy. So now we kind of know ages. So now she's 29, and her fiance is 26. Okay, so now we know some ages. Like I said, we dive into it, we get to know a little bit more. There's another thing with the weaving. Tattoos on the looks like the tattoos on the opposite side. So this might have been so unless she got tattoos on both sides, this might have been I don't know what's going on there. But that was a link from the Madame Noir. So that's where they're getting their sources from. And of course, Madame Noir does what Madame Noir does, which is, oh, black women are victims, etc., etc. Now, mind you, they don't say anything about the suspect other than it's a black man. It's a black man that groped her. That's what the narrative is, right? And these are linked in the description as well. So fair use. But a link to this is in the descriptions. Trust me. So go check them out for yourself if you want to read the entire articles. I'm just skimming through them right now. So of course now Lipstick Alley. I'm assuming another prominent black female thing. Of course but same story. Harlem mom was fatally shot after her and her boyfriend confronted a man who had just groped her on the street. Police said 26-year-old, 29 boyfriend, well, supposed to be fiance. Notice they use boyfriend. He's supposed to be fiance, right? Smith, 29. All right, cool. Both were taken to hospital where Smith, the mother of the 1-year-old boy, died. Her boyfriend has since been released from the hospital. So, one thing that Dr. T. Hasan Johnson at the time he noticed when they did the original story was they completely, like in the titles of those news articles, they only mention her because she's the only thing they really cared about pushing the narrative that black women are victims, when in fact it was her and her fiance. Of course, the fiance survived, but the thing was they don't mention anything about her fiance, which in this article they reference as her boyfriend for whatever reason. But I think there's one more. Of course, another one. And I also like to when I look at these articles, I also look at who writes the articles. That's another thing. And I'm sorry, but I'm very aware of this. What the heck? This looks like a white woman in blackface. I ain't even gonna lie. But journalist, activist, abolitionist, storyteller, ourblackgirls.com. Uh, typical sisterhood type thing, but I ain't gonna lie, that does Erica Marie. Something look off to me, but maybe it's just the angle or something, or I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that for a second it looked like a white woman in blackface. I don't know. Maybe she had yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But obviously she supports black girls, whatever. Black women. We already know the dynamic between black men and black women. Black women are victims. Black men are the scapegoats, right? That's just what it is. So then got shot and killed after confronting a man who groped her. Once again, they don't mention anything about the boyfriend or nothing. They don't care about him because he's not part of what the narrative they're trying to push. They're trying to push that she's a victim of black male violence. That's what they're trying to push. That's what they want to push. Shot 3 times in the chest, rushed to the hospital, and was pronounced dead. Of course, they're going to mention her son, her child, and everything like that. GoFundMe, for her and her family. Difficult times. Do they even mention? Do they even mention? Yeah, they mentioned a fiance. And so in this story, they of course mention him when you read the article, but if you just look at the title, which of course a lot of people just look at the title and they might skim through or look at people who do reviews on the titles or whatever, they might not even mention that, oh, it wasn't just her that got shot. Of course, she was the only one that died, but it was also someone else. Her fiance that she literally came home to get to confront the very man that groped her. It's not like they were on the street and they confronted him when it happened. No, she did a situation where something happened, and like I said, the narrative is he groped her on the street. She went home, told her dude, and then they went back to confront him together. That's the story being told. Um, and this is where things get a little bit it starts to kind of unravel from here because now, like, this was back in February. The details of the situation are very one sided because they don't even know who the suspect is yet. They haven't mentioned anything about the suspect, none of the details about the suspect whatsoever, right? So now, this is a few months later. Now they should know more about it. Apparently, they did arrest the suspect. So now, we actually do have more information on that very suspect that I'm talking about. So let's see here. And I believe these articles, some of I think I just kind of did some of I might not have posted all of the ones I'm about to show, but I know I posted the relevant ones in the description because now I'm going to show you exactly, you know, how this narrative has started to shift now because originally, the narrative, she's the victim, of course, because she died, and the story is one-sided, which I'm assuming they get the story from the surviving fiance because he's the only one that can tell the story because that's what he was most likely told. So that's the only real story we have is the surviving fiance, and he's gonna tell it like she told him, which is, hey, my girl came home. She said this dude groped her and touched her and grabbed her and hey, I'm about to. Now he probably didn't say grope because I don't know how his vocabulary is, but he probably said like, hey, this guy grabbed her or pushed her or touched her or whatever. That's probably what he said, and then it evolved into groping, which of course they want to make it seem like. Of course, the suspect is a black male, so of course they're gonna make him seem like a sexual deviant or something of that nature. Let's look up define grope real quick, because when I think of groping, I'm thinking of like somebody like filling on someone sexually. So grope. If we were to look at the definition, feel about or search blindly or uncertainly with the hands. Feel or fondle someone for sexual pleasure, especially against their will. So, of course, playing the sexual deviant narrative. So it's two for one. You get to make a black woman the victim, and then not only portray the black male as the aggressive, gun savvy, killer that he is, but also he's a sexual deviant. You know, that's just that's the narrative. And now, let me see if I can find these articles. Pulling them up one by one. Because mind you, this narrative that we have, there's also a video where they talk about, they show a clip of the video inside the apartment, like where the confrontation happens. And also, like I said, in these articles, we actually have more information on who the suspect is and what's going on. Because, like I said, from the start, it was a black man who groped her and all that stuff. And I think it's this one. And it's just, oh my God, it's atrocious. How's, black men just out here killing black women. Black women need protection, right? That's the narrative. So in this article, this is a people, of course, people. I think this one might be linked in the description, but you can Google this. It's not that hard to find. Man who allegedly groped her on street. So notice how. Now this one was February 3rd. Now they were a little more reasonable because they realized, hey, we're gonna write the story like our people wrote it, but we're gonna leave a little bit of leeway. That's why they put allegedly, because like I said, up to this point, when the story came out, they only have it from the perspective of the surviving guy that got shot and his fiance was murdered because she told him that's what happened. But people was actually, I give, hey, kudos to people, for at least adding that allegedly in there instead of just saying it like it was told, which of course we know in America you're innocent until proven you're guilty until proven innocent. If you're a black man, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but it's not that way, especially for black guys. So of course they're gonna say confronting man who allegedly groped her on street. So there's a change, the slight change up here, but at least they're a little more reasonable with it. You can read this, same story, of course, because this is all they have. Now is where things start to take a bit of a shift because now, currently I was able to look at more recent articles where they have the suspect that did this. They have the suspect. They have him. I believe he's been arrested. Now it's changed. New York's NYC teen named as shooter who killed 29-year-old woman after she confronted him for groping her. Once again, they don't mention the boyfriend or nothing like that. They just mention her because that's all they really care about. He killed a 29-year-old woman. That's all they really care about. Now, in this case, they could have put black, but they don't even care about the race part. They're just trying to push the narrative that guys are killing women. Period. In this case, this is the guy. This is the now, mind you, he's a teen. He was 18 supposedly at the time when this happened. I believe he has ties to South Africa or something like that. They were saying. And oh yes, cops are searching for an 18-year-old man. They refer to him as a man, even though to me legally he's an adult. But let's just be real, 18-year-old teen. You're still you're not a fully developed man. You're a boy. Triggered a shooting 2 months ago that killed a young mother and wounded her fiance. Of course, like I said, they neglect him and the title. Which let's just be real, most people just read the title and then they'll skim through or listen to whatever. Whoever does the reviews on the article. And then NYPD on Friday. So I don't even know how to pronounce that. Musa Sis or Sisse, whatever. I'm just going to call him Sice Sisse. Somebody help me, or I don't know how to pronounce it. For killing 29-year-old Shadina Smith, who was hit 3 times in the chest. Cops believe it was the man who groped Smith shortly after she left her apartment on West 150th near Frederick Douglass. See, now the story is it's shifting a little bit again because now they're trying to say he groped her after she left her apartment. I thought she was returning to her apartment and he groped her on the street. See, this is where the inconsistencies happen. This is why I'm always skeptical of things because if you can't even get the basics of the story right, that lets me know something ain't right. Y'all speculating here. Y'all just, and of course, up to this point, we only have one side of the story, which is not his, and it's definitely not the video that they claim to have in a later article. Because they actually have some video of like them in this apartment building. Now, mind you, the original story was she got groped on the street, right? It was supposed to be some stranger. It was a man. This is a boy. So let's dive into the next one. Teen arrested for ambush murder of Manhattan women. They getting savage with these titles. Teen arrested for ambush murder. Meaning he just said, screw it up, man. He just bum rushed him and murdered this woman in cold blood. Nothing matters. He's a young black boy. No one might care about him, right? Manhattan teenager was arrested Friday in connection with a deadly broad daylight shooting in Harlem in January. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. Moose, 19. He's 19 currently, I believe, but at the time he was 18. They're going to bring up his history of driving a stolen car. Of course, they're gonna make him into a criminal best they can. That's just what they do. They always do character assassination, right? No, 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 no. So of course, they say an apartment building. This is the apartment building again. And of course, they mention the fiance at the bottom of the article. Like I said, man, they don't give a crap about the fiance. All they really care about is like, oh my god, he killed the black woman. Like the fiance is just an afterthought, even though he's the one that literally probably gave the whole story or this whole because, like I said, he's the only one who survived, so he could tell his side of the story as he knows it, which is his lady told him this dude grabbed her or something like that. Which of course, it evolved into groping because they want to kind of bring that sexual deviant side to it because he's a black man when really he's an 18-year-old teen, a boy. It says he lives on 140. So I don't know streets up there, but that's what he said he lives. So I don't even know why he was in the building, the apartment building. He might have known somebody there. Who knows? Of course, they're gonna bring up weapons possession, all that stuff. I'm not saying the kid was perfect, but let's just be real. I mean, he's an 18-year-old teen. Now, this next article is where okay, this next one is where things get flipped on their head now. Because now, like I said, they only had the perspective of the surviving fiance or boyfriend, whichever one is true. But now they have the suspect, and they also have video, which, of course, they actually show a little bit. Let me see if I can get to the clip in this video of the apartment building. So they do have clips of the video. You can go watch this. I believe I linked this video in the description. So they have video like this little cramped. Like, look how cramped that is. Like, you could bump somebody walking down the hallway. Like who's to say he didn't actually bump her or something walking down the hallway? Because, like I said, it turns to groping because, like, I mean, but they got him on video. This is this little area is small and cramped, so he could have actually bumped into her in the hallway or something. And then they show how narrow. Like, look at this. Look, they show how narrow the hallway is. Like, Jesus Christ. And of course, you saw multiple people walking up and down the hallway and whatnot. And I'm just like, that's small as heck. Like, you could easily bump into somebody, and then I mean, But then again, I thought it was on the street. I thought he groped her on the street. Wasn't that the original story? That's what I thought the original story was. I thought it was a groping, because that's what we were told, right? He groped her, right? Well, let's read a little bit of the article. 4 months, MRP has been trying to track down a teenage murder suspect wanted for allegedly killing a young mother and wounding her fiance. Of course, they're going to add the allegedly now. So thank you for using proper phrasing. Let's continue. It happened after a senseless dispute in the lobby of the couple's apartment building. So wait a second. So it wasn't just on the street. It wasn't some guy hanging out on the street. This was in the lobby of their apartment building. That's why in the first story, that's why it happened in the first floor of the building. It wasn't some guy they confronted on the street. It was an 18-year-old boy that they confronted in the lobby. Now, mind you, she was 29. He was 26. Why are y'all confronting an 18-year-old boy? Why not just call the cops? If you see what I'm saying? Like, if this really was the case, like maybe he was up to no good. Why not call the cops? Why are y'all going down here to try to handle it yourself? Okay, now the story. Now, see, these are the kind of questions I started asking. Like, why? Okay, they're definitely seniors to this guy. He's 18. Her fiance's 26. A more physically developed male who I'm pretty sure could whoop his butt in hand-to-hand combat. Which, hold on to that, because it's gonna be relevant. And then her 29. We saw the weave, we saw the tattoos. Let's just be real. She's a baby mama, or was, because she wasn't married. Just saying. No, let's officials add that the 19-year-old may have fled the city and nation altogether because apparently he had ties to somewhere in South Africa, they say. Accused of killing the 29-year-old mother and wounded fiance in an argument in the lobby. So now it's an argument in the lobby. It's not just a groping. It's not just it's more so now it's just a he said she said. That's what it is. That's what it's turned into now. Because originally it was a stranger on the street, some black man on the street groped her. Now it's an argument in the lobby with the 18-year-old kid. It's alleged that Sis groped Smith as she got off the elevator in her building on West 150 near Frederick Douglass Boulevard. At the same point when her fiance to get her and at the same point she went and got her fiance to help. Now mind you, like I said, this is the hallway. This is the hallway. Skinny as heck. Easy to bump into anybody. But it is what it is, Let's just take their word for it. He groped her fine. So she goes back to her apartment to get her 26-year-old to confront an 18-year-old. No longer in danger, nothing like that. You can call the cops if you need to, if there was real danger. But no, she instead decides to. This is why it was relevant when Dr. T. Hasan Johnson brought up the concept of proxy violence, which is she wanted to go get her man to go. Let's just be real. She went to go get her dude to beat this guy up. That's what she went to do. She knew she couldn't physically do it, but I'm pretty sure if I know black women, I'm pretty sure she cursed him out. She probably said some unfriendly words to the 18-year-old. He probably said some unfriendly words as well. She probably tried to get in his face, and he probably pushed her. Let's just be. I know how things go down in the streets. Don't act like. I mean, I'm not gonna be ignorant to this. I know how things go down the street. Because for some reason, certain black women act like they can actually physically whoop a grown man's butt. In this case, he's not even a grown man. He's 18, and she's 29. Like that's how vast the difference in our physical nature is. Like dudes, guys, even at 18 can usually bigger and stronger than a 29, 30-year-old woman. She knew she couldn't whoop his butt physically, but I'm pretty sure she probably got in his face. She definitely said some unkind words. I'm pretty sure of that, which is why they haven't probably released the entire surveillance video. Because yes, there is surveillance video of the encounter, or it shows the incident that led to the shooting or whatever. But I'm pretty sure they got it on surveillance video. So detective said the suspect had not been seen since the incident. Of course, he was on the run. I mean, you see all these news articles talking about some black man murdered this black woman in cold blood. I mean, try your luck in court, I guess. But here's where the story gets even crazier, even crazier. Because it's like you think you, and then of course I'm going to show you how it evolved. This entire situation evolved because I never take the first thing because like all the facts aren't always out there for the public to know. Which is why, like, I'll hear a story like this, and I'm just like, okay, I know the narrative they like to push. I'm aware of it, so it's like I'm a little, um, how can I say it, resistant to it, right? But of course, you got a little bit. This is from Newsbreak. There's actually from this one. This one actually has a quote down here. Somebody with some common sense. There's like, she should have never drug her man into it. She should have just let it go. Unless she was injured, in which she should call the police, you can you could drag your man into a battle he can't win. So this is someone who posted on this thing on Newsbreak. You know, that's exactly what I believe. That's actually what in the prior video from Dr. Johnson, he said to some extent like why not call the cops? You're at home, you're safe. There's no need to escalate this into violence. But no, she went to her back home to get her man to confront the man. Now we're gonna see another part of the story. Like I said, this evolves. This whole thing evolves. Teen arrested. So now they're addressing him as proper because now they know it's not some full grown black dude on the street. No, it's a teen, 18-year-old, which I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be 17 when this happened. I mean, he's 19 now, so I'm assuming he had to have been 18 because the story came out February this year. But, teen arrested, an elevator shooting after 10 months on the run. Now, mind you, during that entire 10 months, they only had the side of the story from their point of view. And if I know people like to play the victim. People never want to tell you how they got into certain situations. All they want to know, all they want to really tell you is what happened. But no, I'm gonna ask questions. Well, how did you get yourself in that situation? I got arrested for like this is an example. Someone might say I got arrested for drug possession. It was it's crazy and whatnot. Well, my question would be, well, how? How did you get arrested for drug possession? Well, I don't even do drugs, and the cop tried to frame some stuff on me. Well, how did you get arrested for it? Oh, you was driving in a car with someone that you knew does drugs. You know, so I always ask those questions. Now, they even try to go a little further because let's be real, they got a narrative to push. They want to make it seem like this guy is a bad guy. And of course they're gonna add this quote down here. He was smiling even though he was accused of murder and attempted murder. Once again, they're pushing the narrative. He was a savage. This young black boy was just a savage. Look at him, just he just groped this black woman who was going about her business, trying to fill her up and down sexually because he's just a sexual deviant. And then he just ambushed them when they came down off the elevator because it was an ambush murder from that previous article. But this is where things get turned on their head. Teen arrested in Manhattan elevator shooting after 10 months on the run. I think this is the same article. No, wait, this got the more details. So let's see here. Investigators say back in January, 19-year-old, remember he was 18 at the time, was in the building in the West. He got into an argument with the couples claiming the pair blocked him from entering the elevator. So now this is his side of the story. Of course, there's his side, her side, and then there's the truth, right? But remember, on their side, he groped them. He was a man on the street that groped. Because mind you, the one telling that side of the story was the surviving fiance or boyfriend. I'm just assuming he was the fiance because that's what most of the previous articles said. So the surviving fiance told the story like his fiance told him, which was, "Hey, baby, this guy groped me on the street. Go whoop his butt." That's most likely what she said. Now we don't know whether or not he groped her. That's the story we're given. Like I said, it could have been a situation where I wouldn't be surprised if they knew each other because apparently they didn't live that far apart, and he's literally in the lobby of their apartment building. She might not have just liked the guy. She might have bumped up against the guy. She might have brushed up against the guy and didn't like it, and he didn't step down. And like I said, running off at the mouth, things escalated. She probably tried to get in this 18-year-old boy's face, and the 18-year-old boy probably pushed her off of him, telling her back up or something. 'Cause I've seen this happen in the streets. This happens all the time. The aggressors are usually the females because they know if you put hands on them, they're either gonna call the cops or do what she did, which was she went to go get her 26-year-old fiance to go whoop the butt of an 18-year-old boy. The dispute escalated when the boyfriend punching sis in the face. Remember, they didn't say. Remember in all the prior articles, they were just painting this 18-year-old boy as if they called him an ambush murderer. They said he groped this woman. They didn't even mention the boyfriend that survived to tell the story. They just said he shot her in cold blood 3 times in the chest. She's a mother. She's this, she's that. Oh my goodness. That's the narrative being pushed because that's the narrative that they want to push. They want to push the narrative that this young 18-year-old black boy was a savage. Black men, and of course he stands for black men in general. He's a sexual deviant. He's a savage. And this woman was going about her business, and he groped her on the street. Because remember, it was original story was it was on the street. Remember, but they got shot in the first floor lobby of the apartment building, right? So you remember how I said something didn't seem right? So now we know why it didn't seem right because apparently what he's claiming is the pair blocked him from entering the elevator. Okay, so maybe there was some weirdness going on there. But the thing is maybe they blocked him from getting on the elevator because maybe the boyfriend wasn't done with him because he was punching him in the freaking face. And then they say that's when sis pulled out a gun and fired shots at the couple. The man survived, but the woman, which Shadina Smith, as we know it, passed away at the hospital later on. But let them tell the story as they were pushing that original narrative. The 18-year-old boy ambush murdered them after he groped on this 29-year-old single mom because she was a baby mama, and her boyfriend, which was referred to in one article, but we now assume he was the fiance, which I don't know how true that is, because he could just say he was a fiance, for time's sakes to get a little sympathy or whatever. But one article did slip up and say the boyfriend, so let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. The fiance, who's 26, went to go beat on an 18-year-old boy, and it just so happened the boy had a gun and he decided to use it. And if you ask me, it seems like he used it in self-defense. It doesn't seem like he was a groping ambush murderer like they try to frame him to be. It seems like he might, and then of course they got video. So it seems like he might have did it in self-defense. Now I don't know if he probably shouldn't have had he probably shouldn't have had a gun. He's most likely gonna get some gun charges. But let's just be real. They tried to frame him as a murderer, and now months later, 10 months later or so, now he's in custody. Now he can give his side of the story. Now the video that the cops, because mind you, I'm pretty sure the cops had surveillance video already, but they didn't release it up until this point, until more information came out. Up until this point, it was only the narrative that some black man groped this woman, Shadina Smith, on the street, and she went back to confront the guy with her boyfriend or fiance, and they ended up getting shot at, or she got murdered. Because remember, they don't mention the boyfriend until you read the article. So the original article is black man shoots black woman that confronts him for groping her on the street. I believe that was the original article. That totally crazy. And this is just one instance. This is an obvious instance, and this is one that happened this year. Of course, it's unraveling because this article came out the 23rd because they recently just arrested him. But propaganda in general, it's never ending. It's in every today, it's in every movie, commercial, it's everywhere. This narrative they're consistently trying to push. Now, another good example is bad science. And now I'm going to transition to an instance where I was actually calling in on a show, Lapeef Let's Talk, and there was a lady who called in, and she had said something that kind of piqued my interest, to where she was trying to talk about how HBCUs were actually performing better than what they really were, and I challenged that. And I might let me see if I can. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Now, original. She's gonna talk, and I might continue, but I just want to get my part in there. Part of the show happened a few months later, but I think it was back in October. And the lady's name was Ashley. She was on the show as a guest, and she said something to this fact of trying to promote HBCUs, which of course they promote the gunocracy. Female black women as the heads, and of a lot of them, as well as the teaching that ideology that we all too aware of. So of course they're going to try to promote the HBCUs, which shout out to the HBCUs. I wish I wish them the best. They should be performing better, but because of the gunocracy that has taken over them, the liberalism, they haven't been performing up to par. And that's one of the things where I was pushing back against her, because her narrative is they're responsible for all these successful black doctors and et cetera, the most successful black doctors. And I pushed back on the narrative because I was like, I find that very hard to believe that, because she's talking about against other colleges, like colleges like Yale and Harvard, which yes, they create black doctors as well. And she's trying to say um, HBCUs produce the best or financially well off doctors. And masters or whatever. And I'm just like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense because as I stated in there, a minority of those degrees come from HBCUs. And I'm like, how are they outperforming everyone else? And then of course she tries to give her side. Now that study she actually mentions, I looked into it. I looked into it and it was hogwash. It was boo boo. Actually, I made a comment on that very study because I actually went and looked at the study that she put in the chat, I believe. I tried to see if I could find it, but I think she put in like the live chat. But I did link the video in the description starting from that point in the video. And I simply, I read the study that she linked, she was talking about, and this is what the study was. Apparently, the study took students from between 1940 and 2015 from who received bachelor's degrees or better between those years, and the sample size was 520 black graduates of HBCUs and roughly 1,800 black graduates of other colleges. And I simply stated the fact that's an extremely small sample size and would not be statistically significant or accurate to give a better. And of course, some people agree with me because they were like, yeah, that is a small sample size. We're talking about 520 black graduates of HBCUs from 1940 to 2015 and 1,800 black graduates of other colleges. Now, mind you, I didn't see anything where they really took into account confounding factors, which I'm gonna explain that as well. The reason why statistical significance is important is because you can't say the entire population is one way and then you do a study on 500 people. There are millions of people in America. You can't do a study on 500 people and say, oh, everybody in America is this way. It's statistically insignificant because it's not a large enough sample size of the population. It just isn't. That's not how statistics work. The larger the sample size, the more accurate or the closer to reality you get. That's why, like, when you do studies like this, you want as large a sample size as possible. Now, if this was like 5,000 and if this was 18,000, that would be better, much better, because I just multiply the sample size by 10, but even that sample size would be, I mean, between 1940 and 2015. I mean, I didn't look it up. This is a dive. This is not a deep dive. But if I were to look up, how many people graduated in between those years, of course, especially starting in the 1940s, I believe, depending on when segregation and busing happened, the majority of black graduates were from HBCUs at the time, because segregation, etc. But later in life, as people branched out, I mean, you had thousands like I said, the minority of graduates today come from HBCUs, of black graduates come from HBCUs today, because the majority of them go to other colleges. Which is why I push back against that, and this is what I would consider bad science. This is somebody who took some study that was not statistically significant out of context, because I don't think they didn't really like they for one, the sample size was way too small and they didn't really consider certain factors. Like I said, they went to 1940, which of course we already know most graduates at the time most likely went to an HBCU and performed better because of segregation, et cetera, et cetera. But the sample size alone is enough to toss it out. And so that was another example of like how someone can use this bad science to push their narrative as well. Because, like I said, propaganda is more than just a news article or a movie. It's also it leaks into science as well, which is dangerous because that's what people like when they try to do the whole pay gap thing with the liberal feminists, and they try to bring up the pay gap information, but they didn't factor in all these other confounding factors like work experience and time worked into that. They just looked at, oh, women are earning less than men. They didn't even factor in some cases. I don't even think they factor in the type of work. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, what are we talking about here? That's bad science, and of course, that's been debunked numerous times over the past few decades. And I'm just way. That's why. That's why at first I believe I did release a purpose-driven episode. That's why about propaganda. If I haven't, I probably. I think I remember I recorded something on this, but that's one of the reasons why I'm always skeptical. Not in a sense of like it's not true, but just skeptical because I know certain narratives are being pushed, and when I see something that heavily supports the narratives that I know are being pushed, I'm not against it, but I'm just skeptical because I need to look at it for myself. If it's true, it's true. I'm not going to deny it. If it's true, it's true. Like a lot of there's an excessive amount of black men locked up over other races of men. If it's true, it's true. But at the same time, are we going to consider the confounding factors? How a lot of those guys were locked up during a time period where you so much as look at a white person, you can get locked up. We're going to factor that in. We're going to factor in the numerous people who have on video how certain police officers try to toss something in their vehicles. And if it wasn't for them recording it, they themselves would have been also locked up. Are we going to also factor in how majority of the people that get locked up that I am aware of, I think it's like 80 or 90%, it's a plea deal, meaning it never goes to court. It's just plead out. And one of the ways they plead it out is you might be innocent, but the prosecutor will be like, hey, if you fight this in court, you'll get 30 to 40 years versus the 10 we're willing to give you. So go ahead and fight it in court. And then we'll find you guilty. And then you'll get 30, 40 years. But if you just plead guilty, we'll give you this 5, 10. We'll give you 10 years. You'll be out in probation in 5. Now, mind you, this is somebody that could be completely innocent, but because they framed things a certain way, and because we know certain narratives, they absolutely will make sure you get locked up. We seen it with the 4 up north who finally got out after being wrongfully accused of sexually assaulting that woman. Well, what? Well, guess what? What if they never would have gotten out? Because there's a lot of guys still in jail. So yes, some things are absolutely true, but at the same time, I like to look at the why. Sometimes you have to look at the confounding factors as to why that is what it is. Somebody can of course they push the narrative. Oh, black men are so aggressive and black men are so aggressive and violent. That's why a larger percent of them are in jail. Somebody can easily try to push that narrative and use the statistics and facts that are available, which is yes, there is a significantly larger population of black males in prison than should be. But why is that? And that's one of the things where you have to look. You can't just take things at face value. You have to do your own digging and looking. That's why even when I see something that supports my argument, I still dig into it a little more. I want to know a little bit more about it. Now I'm gonna look into another thing with going back to that sexual deviancy that black men are so known for, because that seems to be the narrative nowadays, or has been the narrative um, for a while now, actually, since slave days. Actually, black men are savages and sexual deviants, etc., etc. Protect your white woman or whatever that narrative. But there was this thing of domestic violence. And of course, that first one, is pertaining to proxy violence. But there's this thing with domestic violence as well, and the whole narrative. Okay, black women suffer at the hand of their spouses from, I think they call it IPV, which is like intimate partner violence now. That's what they refer to it as. And I just want to kind of show you how far that narrative is being pushed. Because even if I'm on Google here, you can do this yourself. I'm on Google. We know the stats and everything with black women. Let's see if we can find something. Um, let's try to look up black men killed. Okay, black men killed by domestic partners. Hmm, interesting. Female victims of violence. This is Google. Black men killed by domestic partners, and it doesn't matter. Whatever you type in, like, look, try to look up something specifically, and the first two articles are this: intimate partner violence in the black community. Oh wow, let's find out. Hopefully, we're gonna find some information. Wait a second. National Center for Violence Against Women in the Black Community. Uh, Wait, what? I thought I was looking for. No, this is what you find. This is actually like the first thing, I believe. This is like the first, I believe. One of the top two. The top three are specifically for females, even though I literally type in black men. Maybe I should change it to male, but And then the next one is a fact sheet where I'm like, okay, let me see. This is from the University of Minnesota. Let me see what. This is pretty much relatively the same statistics and facts from the other one, only like primarily focusing on the women, black women, impact of abuse, battered women, dynamics of abuse, teen dating violence. They heavily focus on the women. And this is just if you do a Google search. You just type it into to Google. That's what you get. And then I wanted to look a little bit farther and then kind of dive into how far this goes. Which is now we have this. This is on the CDC website. This government run website. This is where we're supposed to get the best statistics. And this is how, of course, sexual assault against women or violation, the R word. I'll refer to it as violation. When you violate a woman, it's violation. There is no, they don't wrap around it, they don't do none of that. But I want you to see how they dissect it for men. And mind you why they're doing this. So, violation, of course I'm going to use it for that, versus made to penetrate. Hmm. Violation versus made to penetrate. What is MTP? I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't even know. This is an actual term they actually use. Like I just thought, like I had heard of it, made to penetrate, but I didn't know they actually separated this from violation. Well, let's just see. MTP is a form of sexual violence that some in the practice field consider similar to violation. CDC measures violation and MTP as separate concepts and views the two as distinct types of violence with potentially different consequences. Given the burden of these forms of violence in the lives of Americans, it is important to understand the differences in order to raise awareness. Oh, thank you, CDC. But let's see how you guys break it down exactly. Violation entails any completed or attempted. Again, violation entails any completed or attempted unwanted penetration of the victim through the use of physical force or when the victim was unable to consent due to being too drunk, high, or drugged. Incapacitation, lack of consciousness, when people at parties that do drugs and get drunk. From their voluntary or involuntary use of alcohol. Now, what is the difference between violation and made to penetrate? Let's see. Being MTP occurs when the victim was made to, again, MTP occurs when the victim was made to or was an attempt to make them sexually penetrate someone without consent as a result of physical force, or when the victim is unable to consent due to being too drunk, high, or drugged. So pretty much violation, as they tell it up here, only occurs if you're penetrated. And MTP occurs when you're the penetrator. so that so it so pretty much what this is saying is unless you're sodomized as a male, you're not violated. You're MTP. But here's why this is significant. If someone were to do a study on violation, they can exclude MTP, which is the male equivalent of violation. But because the CDC considers it different, they can exclude that data because, mind you, it's separated as a concept and views the two as distinct types of violence with potentially different consequences. Mind you, men and women suffer in similar ways when they're violated, whether they're made to penetrate at a young age or when they are violated at a young age. They could be willing participants or unwilling participants. The consequences are still similar. Both people that are violated at a young age, male and female, tend to be promiscuous later in life. That's one of the common things that happens. But I want you to see how far even they go. Now, it could make sense to some extent, but because they focus on the penetration part of it, unwanted penetration. But then again, sodomize. Let's just be real. I mean, that's unwanted penetration as well. But because men are the natural penetrators, they're like, oh, no, 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 that's not violation. That's being MTP. You're just being made to penetrate, somewhat downplaying the violation of a guy. So if a girl were to hold me at gunpoint and tell me to insert myself into her, I'm not being violated. I'm being made to penetrate. So if they're doing a study on violation on campuses or in general between men and women, of course the results of that study would come back significantly more women are violated than men because they're not factoring in MTP, which is the male equivalent of violation, because they don't have to. This is why this is significant. That's why there's going to be, I'm assuming from here on, there's going to be even more skewed research when it comes to violation of people, especially like when they did that terrible study on college campuses where they were talking about sexual assault, and they skewed the results so bad to where they included leering, which is like literally looking at someone as being sexually assaulted, and like of course overwhelmingly it was like some ridiculously high percent for that I couldn't find that study, but but it is I very well remember, and that's another good example of bad science. But stuff like this is what leads to the bad science, which is why I'll read into the study that is done to try to find out, okay, when they talk about violation, what exactly do they mean by violation? And on the CDC website, at least they're upfront about it. This is what we consider violation. Cool. So now when they do a study on violation, now when I look at it, okay, are they only doing it about this violation, or are they also talking about it in the sense of the equivalence of male violation? Because for the most part, I believed, or I've been so told, that is what these two were synonymous, or at least they were supposed to be. A man could be violated, meaning he was made to have sex with a woman, either willingly or unwillingly. Of course, below age, that's statutory. And then it was the same with a woman who was made to have sex with a man, willingly or unwillingly, statutory as well. But now they're like, "Oh, no, 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 we're gonna separate the 2." So now when someone uses this kind of red flag word and does a study on it, the results are gonna be heavily skewed to only show that a higher percentage of women are violated, when in fact, these 2 might actually be much closer are much closer than what it really is. And this is everywhere. Propaganda in general is everywhere. And it's I don't know what to say about it, but it's one of those things where it's one reason why, like I said, I'm always skeptical when I read certain articles because I have to look at it myself. Just like that story with the black man that groped the woman and they try to make him into a savage, some sexual deviant. They went as so far as to say he groped her when in fact it could have just been an altercation like what was said in the later things and what was shown on the surveillance video. Because mind you, they didn't say he groped her on the surveillance video. They said there was an argument and confrontation or they showed what led up to the argument or confrontation, which was he probably bumped her or something, and she was like, "Excuse you, Negro," and then he was like, "Whatever," and then words were exchanged, and she was upset and went and got her man to come beat this dude down because the aggressor was definitely her fiance. It says he proceeded to put his hand into the face of this 18-year-old, his 26-year-old self proceeded to put his hand repeatedly in the face of an 18-year-old boy, and the boy produced a gun. And they try to make it seem like the 18-year-old boy was a savage. Like he just, as soon as they got off the elevator, he just started busting. That was not the case at all. That was not the case at all. But instead, what you had a woman whose pride or whatever was probably hurt because she couldn't get her way with this young little 18-year-old boy. She probably said some words to him, got in his face. He probably pushed her back. Like I said, I've seen this happen in the streets. And then you can't even so much as touch him because once you touch him, like I said, she could have been all up in his face, grabbing all up on him, getting all up in his grill. And you cannot put your hands on a woman, period, or she will cry for help like you're the one assaulting her. And of course, what happened? She went back to the apartment, get her boyfriend to put hands on him, and that little 18-year-old boy, he wasn't trying to deal with that. I mean, if I'm just being honest, I don't believe any 18-year-old boy should be trying to fight a 26-year-old supposed to be grown man. I mean, I don't know the size difference or anything like that. I mean, he didn't look that big. Let's just be real. Neither of them really looked that big, but you have a 26-year-old man and a 29-year-old woman going at it with an 18-year-old in a enclosed. Because mind you, like the thing was showing it was in a elevator or whatever, but really like I don't even know the details of that because they say he tried they were blocking him from getting on the elevator, and then something happened, and then they got into a fight, or see, they're not even clear about that. Which of course, he'll have his day in court, so let them do what they have to do. But let's just be real. They've already made this young 18-year-old boy, before he was able to give his side of the story, they made him into a sexual deviant and a savage who was an ambush murderer in broad daylight. That's based off the news article titles. That's what they made it seem like. Who murdered a mother, a helpless mother of a 1-year-old boy who was about to get married. That's what they made this guy into. And that's how far propaganda can go. But I might do a follow up, like a crossover show if I feel like chatting later on tonight. But I thought I'd just go ahead and put this out. because I see propaganda in everything, commercials, movies, TV shows. I mean, it's everywhere, heavily influenced. Social media, of course, because other people will promote things that they value, and of course, we already know stuff certain people value, like twerking and thought culture is not ideal, but has been popularized in media and social media. But hey, I thought I'd put it out there. Let me know what you guys think about this. And if I do go live later on tonight, then I'll drop the link. It'll kind of be like a live thing. But till next time, people, thanks for watching.